Hi guys, Blake here with Lilley's Landing Resort and Marina on beautiful Upper Lake Taneycomo. It is June the 23rd of 2020, Tuesday, and this is the OneCast. Today, I've boated up here. I'm starting just above the trophy area, just above Fall Creek. I'm actually got the spot lock turned on here, and I am setting right below the eddy that comes off of Eagle Island. Okay, I think that they are running 3 units of water right now, if I remember looking at the schedule properly. I'm going to start off with a 1/16 ounce dark tri-olive jig on 4-pound line, and we're going to get started. Another beautiful day on the lake today. I don't think we've really gotten much above 80 degrees, probably in the high 70s actually for most of the day here. It might have just reached 80. We've had overcast skies again all day today. Perfect fishing conditions again. Alright, no fish on the first cast. Fishing reports for today. Didn't get to talk with many of the guides. I know Darren Sadler said he was out here this morning, and he said they were doing very well on the inside bin on the above our dock, you know, a few hundred yards above our dock, drifting a pink power worm under a float. We've had a few rental boats come back today and said that the fishing was a little slow for them. I think most people were drifting night crawlers. And I think that's about all the fishing reports I got for today. So I chose to start off with the, ooh, that was a fish. I chose to start off with a 16 ounce jig because I was fishing this eddy water, and the water doesn't actually move quite as fast here. And my other reasoning is I'm going to drift, once I turn the spot lock off, I'm going to drift this inside bank here across from Fall Creek. And the water actually moves a little bit slower there too, so I can get away with that 16th ounce a little bit better. Also, if I was using 2-pound tests instead of 4-pound tests, I could probably do pretty well out here in the main current with the 16th ounce as well. I'm going to take one more cast in this eddy, and then I'm going to let the boat drift. All right. Somewhat busy today, a little bit busier than yesterday. We sent all the pontoon boats out so far, a few times, some of them. And for a Tuesday, I've seen a lot of boat traffic today. So even on a Tuesday, the lake is still hopping. This inside bend can be a really good spot for a lot of different styles of fishing, but for jig fishing as well. I think, you know, the number of fish in it really depend on how water depth and how bright the sun is, because it is shallower over here on this side. So if it's too bright outside and the water's not very deep over here, if they're not running a bunch of water, then I don't think typically too many fish hold up in it. But today we got 3 units of water running and overcast skies, so my thought was that maybe there'd be some fish held up in this slower water over here on the shallow bank. That's why I chose to fish here today. And I started off with this tri-olive jig. However, I've noticed, just based out of my experience, that the tri-olive jig seems to work better on days where the sun is brighter. But I'll try a few more casts with it before I switch to something else here. So this house here with all the red brick, they've got a red brick retaining wall and a few statue eagles out on the wall. Right in front of their house, they've got a little boat dock coming out of a tin shed. And for some reason right here, there's a big log down right in the middle of this eddy. But I have caught a lot of brown trout, small and big, out of this little eddy in front of their house. And I found a fish right behind that tree. I thought I was hooked on the tree there. Yeah. Pretty little stalker sized rainbow there. Lots of colors. Oh, there was another bite. Another thing I've had a lot of success with, you know, drifting this far inside like we are right now, scuds, drifting scuds through here on a drift rig, drifting the San Juan worms, the red or the cerise, drifting those little 639 and 762 model jerkbaits that we sell up in the shop. Anytime the water's running decent like it is right now or faster, I have a lot of luck here on this inside edge doing any of those things, including the jigging. Another thing that would probably be good would be dragging that pink power worm on a drift rig. I want to scoot my boat out just a little bit, getting a little too close. One thing about drifting this inside edge over here is that you got to watch, kind of pay attention back behind your boat. The current can kind of suck you towards the bank, and if you're not looking back, you'll accidentally swing and hit one of those docks back there, and that would not be good. With the water, that pink power worm has been a really hot bait. Well, I guess for a couple years now, but when the water's running this fast, I highly suggest dragging it on a drift rig versus trying to sink it under an indicator. You can still do the indicator method, but you're going to need split shot, and you're going to need to have, I mean, even if I was fishing right here, you'd need to have it set at almost probably 10 foot deep. So I think that at that point, dragging it across the bottom is the better option. Jig colors that have been working recently, this tri-olive jig's been very good. Sculpin ginger, sculpin peach. Yesterday in the one cast I was using an all sculpin jig. That's one of my favorite jigs to throw anytime. But the sculpin patterns have been really good now that we're getting into the summertime. Part of the reason for that is the sculpin fish themselves that live in the lake seem to be in numbers and more active this time of the year. So anything that imitates one of those is good. Okay, I'm going to switch to I think that's a 3/32 ounce sculpin and peach with a brown head. And that's on 2-pound line. Fishing in between these docks is always a good option. Fish like setting underneath that kind of structure. Even if you're, dragging a night crawler or a pink power worm or a jerkbait or whatever you're dragging, you can cast it off at an angle in front of the dock. Make sure you leave enough room for your casts, but it'll sink down and it'll drag underneath the dock, and if there's some fish under there and they're hungry, they'll usually pick it up. And I will say that some of these bigger brown trout like hiding under those docks, so you never know. These docks kind of create an eddy for the fish, so when the current's moving fast, they'll go behind in between these areas to get out of that fast current. Right now we're passing Dino's dock. This little eddy has always been good for me. It's a pretty long stretch. Now they just added a brand new dock here on the lake in between Dino's and the next dock, so not quite as long as a stretch as it used to be, but I think it still does just as good for the fishing. Some other good jig colors right now that the blacks seem to be doing pretty good. I was doing pretty all right on a black micro jig the other day when the water was running slow. Bit of what looks like maybe a small thunderstorm rolling in. I think we got kind of chances of that all week. Pop up storms. I don't know of anything major in the forecast, but ooh, there's a log right there. Saved it. Heard one of the guides talking earlier today, saying that he didn't think the fishing has been quite up to par down around the landing. We know the stocking boat's been through recently, but we don't know if they actually stocked down there or not. And that was just one report that I heard today. Switching over to a 16th ounce sculpin and ginger jig. I'm thinking maybe that 3/32 I was throwing a second ago might have been just a little too heavy for this water back here. And that's something important that you got to play with when you're trying to fish the jigs out here. You got to kind of evaluate the area that you're in, see if the water's moving slower than the main current, because you want that jig to sink at the right pace. If it doesn't sink slow enough or too fast, then the fish don't seem to trigger and bite it quite as much. Oh, that might have been a bite. Alright, I think we'll drift this inside corner down to the boat ramp on Acacia Club and call it a day. I was kind of hoping that maybe the bite would be a little better over here, but I have heard quite a few reports from people coming back in that the fishing was slow for them, so it might just be a slower bite today. I almost tied on a black and yellow jig before I left. I know that black and yellow and black and chartreuse both are good summertime colors out here. I'm starting to think maybe I should have tied one of those on. I'm at least going to let that be my excuse why I didn't catch more fish today. I did hear a report from a couple days ago, a boat that came back in that said they were fishing the Sculpin and Ginger jig, and they fished from Cooper Creek Flat down towards the Branson landing. I don't know if they actually made it all the way to the landing or not, but they came back with their limits of fish and said they were biting pretty good. So there might be a number of fish for jig fishing down the Cooper Creek Flat way and down around Monkey Island. I know the times that I fish it, it's hit and miss. There's times where I've gone down there and fished with a jig and done really well on the flat and down that Monkey Island, and then there's times where I just couldn't find a fish. Alright, we're coming up on the boat ramp, so a couple more casts. I might even switch back to that trial of jig, because that seems to be the only one I've gotten a bite on so far. last cast. I got some boats due back here pretty soon, and we are directly across from the ramp now. But this flat from that dock to the next dock where this ramp is, it can hold a lot of fish. It's a nice shallow gravel bar that comes out and then drops off real deep, kind of about where my boat's setting. Right conditions, the fish will be up on top of that flat, and then a lot of the time they're setting right here in this drop off. So if you're ever coming by this area dragging a bait, I suggest backing off the flat right to where it drops off, and you know, if you got a little more sun, you can kind of see in the water where it's shallow and where it drops off, and then drag your bait right through that seam line under the water. I know I said last cast a second ago, but this is my last cast. Oh no! Oh, that actually felt like a decent fish. And I can't end on a miss, so gotta take one more. Man. So now that we've gone through that inside bend, all the water here now is primarily running the same speed, whether you're on the left side or on the right side. It's probably still a little bit slower over there where the docks are at, but all right. Well, that's a show. We thank you guys for watching. Like and share us on Facebook, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Thanks, guys.